Saturday night in Harlem. The kind of night that looks peaceful from a distance, clear sky, a bright moon hanging over rooftops, the streets below still alive with weekend movement, couples walking, music leaking from windows, taxi horns in the far background, but up on a 4-story building near the corner of a busy avenue in a Harlem side street, peace didn't exist. Up there it was only math, height, concrete, gravity, and a man who had enemies in every direction. His name was Bumpy Johnson, not a politician, not a celebrity, not a soldier in uniform, but in Harlem, especially in the world behind the world, his name carried weight, respect, fear, control, and on this night the people around him weren't there to negotiate. They were there to make sure the city remembered a lesson. Picture the rooftop under moonlight, flat, open, nowhere to hide. No doors you can run through, no friendly corners, no second chances. Bumpy stands near the center alone, and around him a semicircle forms, men in suits, coats, hats pulled low. Their posture says this isn't conversation. This is a verdict. Every face is hard, every stance is ready, not guns for a quick ending, not mercy. The kind of weapons people choose when the point isn't only to win but to humiliate, to make the pain part of the message. Bumpy doesn't panic, he doesn't shout, he studies. Because men like him survive by reading the room faster than anyone else. And the room, this rooftop, reads back loud and clear. You are outnumbered, you are trapped, and tonight someone wants you erased. If you believe the story as it's told in the streets and repeated in modern retellings, these men weren't from Harlem. They came from Hell's Kitchen, a neighborhood with its own crew, its own rules, its own pride, a rival outfit. A crew that didn't just want money, they wanted territory. And territory in those days wasn't lines on a map. Territory was identity. Territory was power, but Harlem wasn't supposed to be available. Harlem, everyone knew, was Bumpy's ground. So the question is, why did they show up? The question is, what kind of men walk into a neighborhood they don't own just to test the one person everyone warns them not to test? The story says it began like these things often do. Not with an epic war, not with a headline, but with a small piece of business in a border zone, an area both sides claimed, both sides watched. A working man running numbers, a small earner, a small cog, until someone decided they didn't want shared control anymore, they wanted exclusive control. And that's how street politics works. You don't argue with a press conference, you argue with pressure, and then pressure becomes violence. The rumor goes the rival crew sent a warning, not a negotiation, a choice, switch sides or disappear. And when the response came back, calm, businesslike, refusing to be bullied, someone took it personally, not as business, as disrespect, as insult. And in that world, insult is gasoline. Then came the invitation, a sit down, a peace talk, a neutral meeting. A classic move because the promise of peace lowers your guard. It makes you show up smaller, lighter, unarmored. And if you arrive alone, it looks like confidence or a mistake. Bumpy arrives slightly late because experienced men don't arrive exactly when they're expected. He climbs up, avoiding the main entrance. Rooftop access, moonlight, wind. And when he steps onto that roof, he doesn't see a negotiating table. He sees a formation, a trap that has already decided the ending. Someone speaks like they're already celebrating, like the outcome is guaranteed. They talk about respect. They talk about territory. They talk about teaching a lesson. And the most dangerous part of that moment isn't the weapons, it's the confidence. Because confident men take their time. Confident men enjoy the performance. Bumpy looks at the edge of the roof, then back at the circle. He counts, he measures distance, he reads where each man is placed. He knows there's no clean exit, no backup arriving fast, no miracle waiting on the stairwell. So now it's psychology. If someone is going to hurt you, you have two choices: beg and let them control the script, or deny them the script. Bumpy chooses the second. He doesn't plead, he doesn't bargain, he walks toward the edge, not away, toward it, and the circle shifts. Because that move does one thing predators hate: it steals their rhythm. It tells them you don't get to enjoy this as long as you planned. And that's when the decision snaps. Hands grab fabric, arms lock in. The roof edge gets closer. The street below becomes a hard, waiting answer. Here's what makes the story live in people's minds, not that he was thrown. People get thrown off roofs in crime stories all the time. The legend is what comes after. The fall is short, seconds, but in seconds the human brain can process an entire lifetime. In those seconds, Bumpy does what survivors do. He protects the head. He tightens the body. He tries, however impossible, to choose how the impact lands. Then concrete, pain, silence, then screaming. People on the street rush forward, then hesitate. Because in that era, in that neighborhood, you didn't just run into any situation involving a powerful man and a violent mystery. You could die just for being nearby. If the story is true or even partly true, what happens next is unbelievable. Bumpy is still alive, broken, shattered, but conscious. And for a man like him, consciousness is not just survival. Consciousness is control. Police sirens grow louder. And Bumpy understands the second trap. If the authorities find him, he goes to a hospital. If he goes to a hospital, he becomes visible. If he becomes visible, enemies know exactly where to finish the job. So the next battle isn't against the rival crew, it's against time. He can't stand, so he drags himself, inches, to the darkness between buildings, just a narrow alley just a few steps away from the street. 10 feet can be nothing. Or 10 feet can be the difference between living and being erased. A woman recognizes him because Harlem recognized him, and he doesn't ask for an ambulance. He asks for something else. Help me disappear. Help me move now. And then he gives a number, a message, a name, and one more detail that turns injury into ignition. Tell them they tried to kill me. Because that sentence doesn't describe an event. It declares a state of reality. This isn't business anymore. This is war. Now here is where you, as the storyteller, can lean into what makes this narrative powerful without turning it into a step-by-step violence blueprint. You don't need lists, you don't need tactics, you don't need how-to. You need the idea that a man nearly killed refused to be removed, that survival alone wasn't enough, that a message demanded a message back. Bumpy vanished into the alley as police lights filled the street. Above him, the men who threw him believed the problem was solved. They believed Harlem would fracture without its leader. They believed the night had ended in their favor. They were wrong. Because Bumpy Johnson didn't ask for revenge. He asked for time. 2 hours, not to recover, not to hide, but to respond. Part 2, 2 hours later.